The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Family-owned Palermo Pizza underwrites this episode of Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters Paranormal Podcast, located at 901 Gazan Parkway, Southwest Wyoming, and available at 616-531-8300.
The road, it turns red with all the bloodshed. This life we live is a path upon a storm now. The waves crash the coast. We're in the souls of our minds. Abuse and neglect pave the way for me now. I walk this road alone. Yeah, people come and people go. Hard times, they always show. But I'm strong, I just move on. Walk on down the road. The past gets left behind. Yeah, bridges burning slowly die. I tried to survive, but no one leaves this road alive. Walk on down the road. Brought to you by WKTV. I'm your Ghost Hunters host, Wayne Preston Curtis Thomas. Welcome to another episode of Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters Paranormal Podcast. As always, we ask that you please keep an open mind about things that you might not easily believe as we explore the mysterious. As always, joining me is my co-host,
Brandon Jose of Jose Paranormal History Productions YouTube channel.
Is that all you're into now, Brandon? Is just the...
Yeah, I'm also a member of GRASP,
All
but
right.
we haven't been doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
We think it's like one investigation this summer, but
Yeah, he joined GRASP. That's one of the major paranormal teams in our area. Well-respected team. And joining us on this show is one of my favorite guests. It's always a good time when
Always.
Ben's in town.
Yes.
Ben Goldman.
Yes, it's great to be back. And back in the studio. Last time was Zoom. Wasn't the same. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah, it's never the same, really, Zoom. I love that sweatshirt, Afterlife
Thanks.
Road.
Yeah, it's one of a kind. I only made one, so that eventually I can sell it for a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, I
Yes.
was going to see if I could get one of those.
Yeah,
It's a
I mean-
nice hoodie.
You're like, I said, once the 10th person asks, I'll start
okay.
selling it. And I think you're number 10, so I'll figure something out to
Yeah, they're cool.
start making merch. Yeah.
Did you design that?
Yeah, it's just a logo. If I end up selling it or something, I'll probably do something a bit fancier, something cooler. But yeah.
Now, Ben Goldman, Afterlife Road Productions.
Yeah. Yes.
You kind of changed that up a little.
Yeah, I just tacked productions onto the end of it because throughout college we did one type of video, and now we're sort of expanding. Now that we're out of college, and different types of videos, different types of stuff. Got podcasts of my own now, so sort of as like an umbrella term to encompass all of these things. Just added productions to the end of it. So.
And then you're a recent graduate of Michigan State University.
Yeah, I think last year. So I think right after the last time I was on your show, because I think it has been a year. So between the last two, yeah.
So you were MSU Paranormal Society.
Yeah. So that's how we all met, and we all met. So the MSU Paranormal Society is actually quite large, one of the largest in the Midwest for sure. So we all met there, and then sort of branched out and started Afterlife Road. Now Productions, but Afterlife Road Paranormal then turned into Productions. So it's just the core friends that we all met there in the club, and we want to do something, a bit different. The club is very structured, very, we go on one investigation a semester. We wanted to go on one every week, so we started our own little subset of the club. Obviously, we're not in the club anymore; it's a student club, but still very close. I know the current co-presidents are doing a great job, so the club keeps growing and growing, and maybe there will be another Afterlife Road Productions that comes out of the club one day. So
yeah, they need another go-getter like you.
I know, they really do.
Yeah,
they really do.
So you do a YouTube series? Is that still you're doing that?
Yeah. So throughout college, we, like I said, we wanted to go on an investigation every week. So every week we would go out and we would film a little video. And created the Haunted Michigan web series, where we essentially went across Michigan. I mean, we never went to the UP, but pretty much hit every other corner of the state.
Okay.
And now I'm more interested. Once we graduated, I'm more interested in like quality over quantity. So more focused on, some longer term videos. Not quite within the vein of just we go out to a place, film something for a few hours, and the next morning a video's up. So focus on things like the short film I just put out. Focus on things that I'm working on, a couple other projects. So even if it's not quite the web series, it's still, I think, better content than ever, and definitely more informative.
Yeah, I know. You did a movie though. This is really what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Now it's ironic because when you read the intro back to me, which I think you were the first person to ever transcribe our little Afterlife Road intro. I just saw my cousin last week. I could have asked her. She's the one that did the song, but
the song by the Coroners.
Yes. And when you read it, it's ironic because one of the lines of the song is "I walk this road alone," but the whole, I think, message of the movie, the short film, was like who we are and like, us going through this together. The core friends, like I mentioned in the club, how we went through this crazy experience together and we came out in one piece, and that was sort of like victorious that we survived.
Yeah.
Together. So
it was, and I watched it. It was about a 30-minute film.
Yeah. And
you brought back some of your buddies, Ryan and Sarah.
Yep. Well, Sarah's the lead investigator of our group, so she's I think if you don't count me, she's been on the most investigations. So she's always there. But yeah, Ryan had a cameo in it, so good to have Ryan back in the crew, in the video. It's always fun with that guy.
Yeah, we even showed up in your film for a brief second.
Yes, I think the line was 3 years have passed and our friend group and our network has grown. So friend group has grown. I showed a shot of one of our newer members, Quinn, and our network has grown. Who are some of my favorite people we've met along the way. So I had to show you guys, of course.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I'd say you're one of my favorite guests because this has been, every once in a while you get a chuckle on this show, and you provided more chuckles than anybody. The stories that you tell, that you've told through the years about the spirit mappers, you just went into stuff that's just funny.
Yes, and that's a shame. Like, I always look back, the spirit mappers, like, that happened all off camera. Like, that's one of those things I wish someone had documentation of, because it's just too crazy and out there for even me to believe. Like, that was like one of our first ever investigations. Why did we continue? Any sane person after that happens, they would just, I mean, not only was that one of our first investigations, I think that was literally the first one we did off campus. Okay. So, because I remember it was a struggle to drive somewhere. We were always doing all these campus investigations. And once we actually wanted to get off campus, we needed a ride, and the person who had a car, they weren't able to make it, so we had to get an Uber. Yeah. So the first time we Ubered somewhere, this happens. So it's just crazy. It's crazy looking back, all the crazy things that happen off camera that maybe one day I'll think of, like, writing it all down, maybe a little something. I don't know.
Well, the movie helps.
Yeah, it does. It does.
But the spirit mapper, you get this Uber, and you want him to take you to a cemetery, which he does, and then you get there, he locks the doors. Mm-hmm. What the heck?
Yes, because, on Uber, I don't know who out there like knows how it works, but when you get an Uber, the Uber driver has a little phone or tablet, and it pops up all the people and where they want to go. So you get to choose to take them or leave them. This guy saw where we were going and picked us up on purpose because he is a spirit mapper or Uber driver, and he knew that this place had demons. He I guess, and his church buddies drove around when they weren't Ubering, drove around the state of Michigan, mapping the most demonic places around. And the place we wanted to go to was on his list. So he wanted to pick us up to pray for us before we go, and to try to steer us away from a place across the street, which was even more demonically infested. And he kept telling us, don't go to Pregoris Park. And I'm like, what? How do you spell that?
Yeah, right.
How do you not go to that? Like, I wanted to. So after he locked the doors and prayed for us, he gave me his business card, and he don't take an Uber home.
Yeah.
Just call me directly. I won't charge you. I just want to make sure you get home safe. And he did another prayer for us. We ended up getting tacos with him a week later. And then we snuck over to that park he told us not to go to.
Right.
So it was quite an experience. And,
For your first investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think there were a couple between this other park because we didn't want him to get suspicious because he was kind of an intimidating, strange guy, and he had our numbers, and he was getting tacos with us, like I said. So there was a few between, but our first investigation was the one he prayed for us, and a few later, like number 8 or 9, we went to that park. And then he died, and his obituary said, "Spirit Mapper, also known as Uber driver."
Oh yeah.
Most people would be the other way around, like Uber driver and Spirit Mapper.
Right.
He was like Spirit Mapper. Oh, he was also an Uber driver. So.
Yeah, that was a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brandon and I have had some experiences, but I don't know if anything compares to that. But your 30-minute film is called Afterlife.
Yes.
Brandon, you saw it. Now, what do you think? You got some questions for Ben?
Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you said it was terrible, the door's right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it because it was really interesting. I think maybe the start is the place you were investigating, kind of what the backstory was of it that kind of led you to go there in the first place.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting about this place
Rosevere Park?
Rosevere Park, that's right. It's in Owasso.
Owasso, here in Michigan.
Michigan.
Was near the Michigan State University?
It's about 25 miles away.
Okay.
So, it was local. So we were actually going to go investigate a different place, just a few miles away, and the place fell through. It was an indoor location, and it fell through. Literally when we were already in town, because we oftentimes like to get there a little bit early, maybe have dinner in the area, so we're not in a rush. I think you guys know, like the first time I was on a show with you guys, like there's bad traffic, and we're like, after that, like, don't want to be rushing again.
Right.
So we were just in town, and they canceled on us like an hour before. We never actually ended up investigating there because that was kind of rude on their part, but then we just looked up. We were undeterred. We wanted to find a place. So Ryan just had me. I was in the back seat. He said, "Hey, take out your phone and just Google like haunted places near me." And this place, Rosevere Park, popped up. And these sites, you can click on it, and they have a little blurb about the lore and everything. Didn't even do that. We just saw it was a park, and we're like, okay, it's a park. It's outdoors. It's not gated, probably. If it is, we'll just drive by and not go. But who can stop us from doing a quick investigation at a public park? So I just copied the address, didn't look at any of the info at all. And then we just showed up. Within 5 minutes of getting out of the car, we ended up running back and leaving. And we never even investigated because the park is... it was a big, prominent park in town back in the 60s and 70s. But then, like a lot of small towns, I guess, they just kept building more and more parks. So then, once they had 6, the city said, we need to pick one to stop funding. So this park, Rosevere, just stopped getting city funding and just kind of, they had a big gazebo, they had these great, creeks with all these like rocks lining and all of
Did
that.
they have a bike trail?
So yeah, when the city stopped funding it, all these things sort of got taken down or just vandalized to the point they had to remove them. And then in recent years, some locals wanted to try just independently bringing it back, so they made some DMX bikes, just little humps, because a lot of motorcyclists go through. And that's something that wasn't really explicitly mentioned in the film, but that contributes to the hauntings because a few motorcyclists died in the park. And then I was talking to someone who had property. They were really upset that these motorcyclists came in and this peaceful park that no one went out to now is really noisy. So they would actually mess with these motorcyclists by getting tripwire so that they would go and trip, and then that actually caused at least 2 people to die.
Wow.
So.
And then Jack Vincent was ran over and stabbed to death.
Yes. So in the entrance of this park, after it was already shuttered, and in the mid-70s, once it stopped getting the city funding, this guy came back from a bar in town, and I guess it was some love triangle
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
And then he ended up getting run over and killed. And I actually, for a while, we couldn't find any evidence of this happening besides court records. So, the court, everything. But I was like, there's got to be more info. Like, who is this guy? What does it look like? I didn't realize, me growing up in today's society, when something like that happens, it's on the news within an hour. Back then, if it happened like on a Sunday, you gotta look like at least 2 days after in the news. Like they obviously reported on it, but there's a delay.
Right.
So I didn't think to look in the old newspapers. I always looked the day of or the day after. It was reported 2 days after. So I ended up finding and got permission to include some of the images in the film. Seeing the images of the crime scene, that was crazy because that was so late in the production of the film that all these crazy stuff happened to us. And then seeing the actual proof of, I was standing right there, and that's where he got killed. Like that was crazy.
That's got to be a residual
Yes.
feeling left behind.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add something that's quite subtle in the film, but I included this in there at the end, but I felt it was too on the nose, and I because it's always so, I don't know. When you have at the end of a film like a huge moment where like, and did you realize that this is blah blah, and then this huge like revelation, it can either be really cringy and like okay, or it can be really shocking. So I didn't want to veer into the cringy territory, so I just made it really subtle. But there are only 2 dates in the entire film. Usually when I say like, oh, this happened here or there, I just say like 2018 or 2022 or just the year. But only twice did I break that formula and put an exact date. The 2 dates I put were the day of the murder that you just mentioned, and then the day we found the bones at the end.
Yeah, you found bones
Yeah.
and some blue jeans.
Yes. Those 2 dates.
You weren't sure what kind of bones
No.
they were.
Nope. We went back and we were just getting some pickup shots of the documentary, and when we went, we found a blanket with little like birds on it, like a baby blanket
Oh yeah.
that was wrapped around a pair of blue jeans that had a bunch of matter on it. And when we pulled it out, a bone fell out, and we found all these other bones around the area. Some of them were very large that could have been human or deer. So we ended up calling the police, and that's how it ended. But the 2 dates, the day we found the bones and the day of the murder, same day.
Wow.
47 years to the date that this guy was murdered and the park became a crime scene. We find bones and it becomes a crime scene again.
Brandon, we never found any bones.
No.
My grandfather dug up bones when he was a
Yeah.
ghost hunter, but they were bones of people, and then they buried them, and then the ghost was at rest.
Yeah.
But you found those bones, and you don't know whether they're human or not.
No, but still
Turn
unresolved.
them over
Yep.
to the police.
Yep. And it was funny because we were sitting there and we were just getting some pickup shots, and it was already dark. We didn't want to be there dark, but once the sun went down, we were kind of there. We were like, let's maybe do a quick thing. We didn't have any cameras or equipment. Devin had her spirit board, and we were getting some shots with it there. It was more so a prop. We didn't have the pendulum or anything with us. And then so we sat, and Sarah and Devin wanted to meditate. And while meditating, they're like, can you manifest a guide, like someone to show us around? And then a cat just appears out of nowhere. And then this cat just keeps purring and taking us to the spot where the bones are. So this little cat that had a little black and white pattern here that looked kind of like a tuxedo, so we called him Tuxie.
Yeah, you had the cat in the film.
Yeah, that was when I sent the draft to Sarah, her one critique was not enough cat. So I added more Tuxie cat. So when the police ended up coming, at first he was really nervous about going in the woods because he knows the legends and the lore, and he was a
Animal sacrifices.
Yes, and he was a bit nervous about going in. But I could sense it was a mixture of like either it was a prank or it was real, and if it was real, he didn't want any part of it. So when he finally went up and saw the bones, he started to panic. And then he looked over, and Devin didn't pack up her spirit board. We just ran out, to be on the road to greet the police. And the cat, Tuxie Cat, found it and was just sitting perfectly in it. So
sitting on the Ouija board?
Yeah, sitting straight there on the board. So then the cop looks over, and he shrieks, and he's like, "Get your spiritual ass away from me," to the cat. He was like flipping out.
Oh, no.
And then we kind of discreetly just packed it up, because once he saw that Ouija board, his tone changed on a dime. And then the cat, we never saw the cat again.
But the area has a reputation of
Yes,
having
animal
sacrifices.
Yep. Confirmed by, I spoke with a former police officer at the time, and it was confirmed by him. I spoke with locals who grew up in the 80s when all this stuff is said to happen, and they testified as well. They found a lot of small animals like squirrels, rabbits, raccoons. One person said a pig's head just showed up in their backyard. I didn't get confirmation of that, so I didn't include that, but seemed to be no larger than a pig. So
you did some interviews. You interviewed a family that had some experiences in Rosevere Park.
Yeah, that was interesting because the family, I was in contact. I reached out to a bunch of people on Facebook. A lot of them had stories, but they didn't want to share it on camera. So one family, I was like, I don't care about them being on camera. No, I just want the information at the end of the day. As you saw in the film, like a couple people, I didn't show their identity. I just got their voice. I don't care. Like that stuff doesn't matter to me. As long as the information is there, I can work with it.
Yeah.
So I told them like, hey, originally it was just this one lady. I was like, you don't need to be on camera. Like if it's audio only, she was okay just being audio only. So she's like, actually, can we push it back next week to Easter Sunday? All my family will be there, and they have experiences and stories to share as well. So I'm like, I don't want to intrude on your Easter, dinner. She's like, no, you're not intruding at all. We really want to get this off our chest. So I showed up to this family's house on Easter Sunday, right before their Easter meal.
Yeah.
And they stopped their, celebration to come in the basement and tell me all these messed up stories about Rosevere Park. And it was just the strangest thing ever. It's like, clearly they weren't making this up. You could tell, like, it clearly affected them. If they're taking time out of their Easter just to share with this strange kid all of these Rosevere Park stories, like, and they lined up perfectly to what we
there was
we had
parallels between what
so many
that happened
parallels
to you.
Yes, and that's where it was in that moment of the film, or of the process of making the film, that I was just like, okay, there's something here.
Right.
Yeah. So
Too many coincidences.
Yes.
Yeah, people don't believe in coincidences that are in our field.
Yes. When does it become a coincidence, and when is it something more? And this was something more.
They're what I would call significant coincidence. The shots you heard sounded like a gunshot.
Yes.
And they also heard
Yes.
what sounded like a gunshot.
Yes. And these are all experiences too that, like, we're just making this, documentary. It's not like you can find our experiences online or anything. Like, yeah, we did film a video there a few years ago, but it's since been, made private since making the doc, and a lot of the experiences that we had off camera lined up perfectly. It was just, how could they know that stuff? It was crazy.
It reminded me of the old films that I had seen from you, where you're running, screaming, dropping the camera, but you spoke of, in Rosevere, you spoke of demons and terror, is how you described it in the film. So you say you're skeptical of ghosts, but what about demons? Are you skeptical of evil?
When we went back, that's the thing about this park is, ghosts or not, which is, it's hard to be skeptical of spiritual stuff there, but even if you are skeptical, there's no denying, like, this place just attracts negativity. And it's just like, if you take a deep dive in the lore and the history, which isn't publicly available, like, it took a year just to uncover what we uncovered, and a lot of it didn't even make it in the film, but just the gist of it definitely did. But as you can see in the short film and doing your own digging, like, there's just negativity upon negativity upon negativity. The amount of murderers and serial killers that are said to have been obsessed with this place before they became murderers or serial killers, Like,
Yeah.
this place just attracts negativity for whatever reason.
It almost goes back to those demon mappers, those spirit mappers. It's like this area might be just an area that has maybe been cursed. Something
Yeah.
like that. There's just evil dwells there. There's a couple things stood out. Is that loud growl that you heard? You can hear that in the film.
Yeah.
The EVP of a loud growl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brandon and I have heard something similar at a private case where there was 4 or 5 of us in a small room, and every one of us thought we heard right in our ear. It was just a breath, but it was like right inside our ears.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
for me it was more because we were like sitting around a bed, and it sounded like it was coming from the center of the bed, and like there's nothing there that really to try to debunk it. We couldn't figure it out. So if we were coming from like a vent or something, okay, there's a noise coming from here. Maybe it's traveling through the vent, but this sounded like it was in the center of us in the bed.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything there. We're like, I don't really know what it would be coming from because we're all pointing at the sounds coming from the middle of the bed.
Yeah, we all heard it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stands out there for me in your film. And also the EVP that you recorded that said, "Help me."
Mm-hmm.
Now, you say you're skeptical. You must see to believe. But maybe you must believe to see.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to something that, the thing that stands out to me in the film, and this is something that's kind of subtly, something people when they watch they're subtly aware of. And then when I mention it, they're like, "Oh shoot, you're right." There's no ghost hunting at all in this. No ghost hunting. There's no clips of us investigating. We don't take out a single piece of equipment.
Yeah, I like that.
Not once did we say like, "Hey, if you're in the woods, can you give us a sign?"
Right.
None of that. We don't acknowledge any of it. This is just stuff that happened around us. Literally, if you take out all of the like paranormal stuff, all the context, and just show the parts where we're there at the park, it's just us walking in the woods. Then you add all the other stuff in, and it's all this like we're walking in the woods. There's singing coming from in the woods.
Yeah.
There's
It was
there's-
weird singing.
yeah.
It was operatic
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and we're not singing. And then there's these voices on one camera saying, "Help me," that's not on the other camera. And then there's another woman's voice later on, and then I think the only moment where we even acknowledge it is like Ryan's like, "Oh, I just think I heard something. Let's go back somewhere where it's more open area." So, but even then, we're not like, "Oh, was that you? Can you give us a stronger?" No, there's no
Right.
ghost hunting. So this could have been anyone. You don't need to be a ghost hunter to go there and have stuff happen. All you have to do is show up.
And the
it's
first
been-
one, that's all you did was kind of show
Literally,
up.
all we did.
And you're walking there, and then all of a sudden you all
Literally,
ran off.
Literally. And then when we go back, like the only difference is we walked further.
Yeah.
I mean, we did do a lot of investigating, and we did take out Spirit Box. We got some crazy Spirit Box voices saying, "I know it's evil," but I didn't feel it was necessary to put any of that in there. It just us just walking, all this crazy stuff happened. Which then you think, okay, because when you take out equipment and you take out that sort of stuff, it's like, all right, how do we know this is a ghost? It's just like an EMF beeping. Is that a ghost? No. Could it combined with all the other stuff be signs of something abnormal happening? Yes. But on its own, that's not like a ghost. If a ghost walks up to you and then the EMF goes off, like sure that helps validate, but it's not ever just, to me at least, a sign of a ghost being there.
Right.
So we strip away all these tools, all this technology that sort of filters the activity through it. It's very rare that we have stuff happen without it, and here it's just every time.
I was curious if you had any equipment,
Yeah.
any sort of tools, any phone apps that when you got that EVP, "Help me."
Mm-hmm.
I was curious, but you had nothing.
Yeah,
It
I
just
mean,
came out of the thin air.
yeah, nope, nothing.
It's a
And
good
that's-
one. It's creepy.
Yeah,
And it's
Yep.
pretty, I mean, I could tell what it was. Of course, I had a little help because, you kind of said, I think you printed it out.
yeah, I
Help
printed
me
it
on it
out.
on
But still,
film.
like it was clear enough for me.
Right.
If you were closing your eyes, if you blinked at that moment, you still would have heard it.
Yeah, that probably was Class A EVP, where everybody would just said, yeah, they heard the same thing. "Help me." So for you, seeing is believing, is hearing. believing?
I mean, then we just posted a Haunted Michigan web series video a couple weeks ago. Something I cut out of the film was that the same woods that surround the park also surround a cemetery a couple miles away in town. So we investigated the cemetery after the film was already done. So the cemetery wasn't really a part of the story. It just so happened to be surrounded by the same woods. It had no correlation with the park itself. But once the film was done, we were like, what gives? Let's go to the cemetery and just investigate. What if whatever's in the park uses the woods to travel to the cemetery? Plus, it's a cemetery. Like, already, like, if you want to find where, ghosts might be, it's where the dead bodies are. So, like, hospitals, cemeteries, like, ghosts are probably there anyways. So, we went out to the cemetery, and a lot of the same things happened. Equipment malfunctions, we heard a growl, we saw a shadow, and then I got scratched down my left shoulder. So, taking everything into account at this place and all the places around this place, everywhere these woods touch, you hear crazy things. You get scratched, you get physically marked.
All right, scratches.
Yeah,
that was in the
that's another
film.
People you know and trust getting, thrown to the ground. Two people you know and trust seeing the same face, drawing the same face.
Yeah.
When they said, "Oh, I saw something," I was like, "All right, separate, draw it, and then we'll compare," because I know that both of them can. I mean, not Sarah's. Sarah's pretty logical and grounded in reality and science, and this was the first time she ever had an experience she couldn't rationalize and explain. So that was significant, seeing her try to make sense of it. But Ryan maybe every now and then can let his imagination run wild. So and he's not a good drawer either. Yeah. So I had them separate and draw. But Ryan, drew better than I've ever seen him draw. And Sarah, who's won multiple awards for her art, she's an artist, she simplified her drawing to show just big gaping holes as eyes, a big gaping mouth. Just for me, someone who's won awards for how detailed and accurate her medical artwork is, to then just minimize it and show only the necessary details, and Ryan to add all these details of all the wrinkles and little plates. Like, they drew the same face, and that was crazy to me.
Yeah.
See, to me it reminded me of like the Man in the Moon. It doesn't really look like a human face. It looks more like the Man in the Moon. You got like the eyes and the mouth. So that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. Things happen times two. That's what makes this believable and adds credibility to it, because you had the times two, the gunshots heard, times two, the two people that drew out the faces, and you had two members that quit the team after this was over. They said, "We had enough of this." Yeah. So that was that was significant. It was times two. It wasn't just happening once; it was happening, repeating.
Yep.
Makes it very believable. Yeah.
And then even when I was interviewing the family, and she's like, "Oh, my friend, who's obsessed with this place, he became a serial killer." Another family member chimed in and said, "Oh, my friend who's obsessed with this place became a murderer."
Oh, geez, yeah.
So it's like everything was times two.
Right. Then there was this upside down cross that was on a tree there.
Well, that's the tree that, we got all these shots of this tree just because it's a good visual. That's the tree under that tree that he got murdered. So.
Okay.
Yeah, because that used to be the parking lot of the park.
Okay.
And now it's overgrown. You can't park there. But that's where he got murdered.
And
under the 666 tree.
It looked like there was blood on the trees, didn't it? What was that red?
I don't know. Maybe it was a residual. We did go out with this biodegradable, fake blood to get some shots of the blood in the park. So maybe there was some residue. But
there's something about the trees feed on blood.
Yeah. The psychic said the trees here feed on blood. And then guess what? The whole time we were filming this documentary, there's something decaying under a tree.
Yeah, the psychic to me was the creepiest part of the whole film.
How do you think I felt?
Yeah. You had to disguise the voice.
Yeah, she wanted to disguise the voice, and I could have gone two ways with it, just disguising it a little bit or just going really deep, and it sounded really creepy deep, so I was like, I'll keep it.
Yeah. especially like the laughing with it and that.
Yeah,
time,
she
too.
kept laughing and everything.
It's like
and
the
none of
trees
the
want
funny
blood
parts.
and like
Yeah.
laughing. I was like,
Yeah, I'm like, do the trees like me? She's like, no, they're like blood. And then she's like
Yeah.
cackling. I'm like, how's that funny?
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
creepy.
It's unfortunate because during one part of that interview, you can hear a child's voice under her talking,
yeah,
but with her voice disguised, it just wasn't
yeah.
audible, so I couldn't include it. But it was as a behind the scenes note. Even when I was there just interviewing the psychic, under the psychic talking, there's a child's voice.
Oh.
So
You had severe battery drainage,
mhm.
which is typical of a haunted location. Yeah, I thought that was. And then the interview with the family, they talked about red eyes and time loss,
Yeah.
which time loss comes into other areas that we've talked about on this show. That can be associated with.
A lot of times, like aliens or like fairy encounters. They're very similar in many aspects in terms of like that.
Aren't fairies a bit similar to like elementals or?
Yeah, elementals, fairies, all kind of the same. They're basically the same thing. It's just a lot of different species, kind of.
If you're gonna look for those, you go to the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm thinking like the lost time type of thing
Yeah,
might come
yeah.
into effect.
Definitely. And a different psychic who contacted us after, who didn't want any part of being on camera at all, so couldn't include this. She said that what's there kind of looks like a daddy long leg spider that leaps between trees, which is kind of similar to a story at another place we've investigated, Seven Gables Road, that has a story of like, he described it as a flying squirrel, just this big sprawling mass, shape that jumps between the treetops. So I don't know if that's something common with like elemental type of hauntings or something, just something leaping between the treetops, but I guess that's a big report there as well.
I mean, it always could be. I don't know like all the different ones, but there's like, like with that type of lore, there's so many different kinds and varieties.
Right.
It's like animal, it's where there's like tons of species of animals. There's tons of species of of them too. So it could
Definitely.
be, or it could be the way that psychics may be seeing it. Might not be its true form, but that might be the form that they can see it at, kind
True.
of a thing too.
True.
So this might not be a ghost. This, as paranormal investigators, we run into other entities out there, and the question is whether this can be something evil. This certainly goes to that side of the spectrum.
Right. I mean, the psychic that I spoke with said there's a couple spirits there, the people that were killed out there, but then there is something larger, and it does appear to be something just so much negativity in one area, like that's got to leave some sort of residue, be it something demonic or just, I mean, you can feel it when you're there, and that speaks to itself. Like, even if you didn't know any of the history or the lore, which we didn't the first time we went, we had no info at all except for the address, and we walked out and we could feel that negativity just emanating from the woods. You can feel it, and that's significant to me.
And it could be a thing like Hell's Bridge, where there might not have been something there to begin with, but now there's so many people there that are doing animal sacrifices, and who knows who they're praying to, what kind of gods they're praying to, that they've actually created.
Invited something there, but this park has a lot more of a backstory than where there's actually documented stuff that happened. That's a big difference between that and Hell's Bridge. Hell's Bridge, there's nothing documented to back up the story. Like, a story just seems like that's a total myth,
Yeah, and like Hell's Bridge too is like, people still go out there.
Mm-hmm.
This park, Rosevere, the amount of times I went out there during the day, at night, getting shots for the documentary was so close. I could just drive, and I used to work just across the street, so it was so convenient just on the way home to get a shot or two. So we had a lot of shoots spread out, as opposed to like one day we went crazy all day. Didn't see anyone. One time when we went there on an investigation, we saw a drug deal happening there in the parking lot, but that was about it. no one goes out there. We didn't see a single person.
Oh yeah.
Besides that one drug deal, and they were just in their car. So, and we stayed away. But yeah, we even set up a trail because we were hearing all these voices. So we set up a trail cam, and we let this trail cam. It was the first week of spring and a full moon. Not a single person walked past it.
Right.
A squirrel walked past it once and tripped it, but that was about it.
But I think there is a possibility that they've created some kind of a tulpa. Maybe there was something there to begin with, but if not, they've created something there. Just the way they're doing there, and they're putting that cross upside down. You said you spend your weekends at graveyards, abandoned asylums, massacre sites, and then I'm adding haunted roads and urban legends. You covered a lot of urban legends in your career.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, one of them was Hell's Bridge that we brought up, and you guys got up. You, Brandon, and Kim, our other co-host, got up from one of our shows and went out to Hell's Bridge.
Yeah, knowing we might have gone, I wear my Lucky Leprechaun socks, and yeah, I think those came in handy because that still the craziest part though is we were just there investigating, and this couple just walks in with a little toddler. It's
right.
like.
That was the interest, but she's like, oh, my friends or something, like there's another kid over there on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, no, there's not.
Yeah. Because the story is that kids were killed there, so several of them. So that's not something you're going to bring your infant to, your child to, I wouldn't think.
Well, even if there wasn't ghosts, this bridge is not sturdy at all.
Yeah.
It's about, like, I was worried that one more person on it, the whole
Yeah, I'm
thing
not
would
sure
collapsed.
if it's collapsed. I've heard somebody say that it's collapsed, but I haven't been able
really?
to verify that. It was pretty much ready a few years ago when I went. Like each time I go, the shore is more washed back from it, so there's not much. You have a bigger and bigger gap from the end of the bridge to get to the other side, but.
So yeah, that sounds like a fun place to take your toddler.
Right.
In the middle of in the dark at night.
Yeah.
And the dad took the toddler, put the toddler on his shoulders, and he was like walking across a bridge all cocky and confident. Thing could have collapsed. Where's the toddler going?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've never been out there, but that's one of the urban legends that you covered. Ada Witch is another one. Now, Brandon, did you go out there? Did you bring any of our other friends out there with you to Ada when you were?
I think it was just Brandon, but we met that family. I don't know what it is. Every time I investigate with Brandon, we pick up strays.
So you went out to Ada Witch.
So we ended up having some other people join us because we were at the one park, and then they're like, "Well, we know where the spot is in the cemetery." I mean, that's another urban legend. There's no evidence of the witchcraft or the love triangle type of thing, but that doesn't mean there's not activity there. But yeah, so we ended up going back to the park following behind them back to the cemetery that day. So
yeah, that's a couple of the local legends or urban legends that are real popular in our area.
Yeah.
That you guys have gone to together. That's pretty cool. But we also did the Belding Library.
Oh yeah, that's still one of my favorite investigations ever.
That was a good one, and I think there's something out there.
I do too.
I thought maybe it was residual energy at first, just because it's made out of marble, slate, all those things that absorb residual energy and store them. That we were going to run into some residual historical haunting, I like to call it. But then there was a 100-year time capsule that they had hidden in the building we didn't know about the first time we were there.
Yeah, and then when we went, because they kept saying that like things get knocked off countertops, and they'll like maybe set a pen down and it gets thrown off. So we had an idea to just go around the building and in front of every camera put a marker, up on top of a countertop and see if it gets knocked down. So we went into this one room and we saw a little plaque. So we said, hey, it's okay if we put the mark on this plaque. And she goes, that's not a plaque, that's a time capsule. We're like, oh, okay. And she's like, we just took it out. It's been 100 years. And we just sealed it back up because it's going back in the ground tomorrow. And we're like, oh, that's significant.
Yeah.
And she's like, here, let me unscrew it for you. We're like, no, you don't have to. She's like, no, it takes 2 seconds. So she unscrewed it for us. And we were able to photograph it. And,
Were you able to handle any of that stuff? You had some old coins.
No.
Some
she didn't let us handle it, but she still took
silk,
it up. Yeah, there's a lot of silk from the old silk mill. But still, I think we were the last people to see it because, the next morning, she sealed it back up in front of us and put it back on the ground. as soon as she took the stuff out of the time capsule, that's when all the activity just flurried. We were already picking up some stuff, and then after the time capsule, it was this whole different ball game.
Yeah, you heard stuff. You had pressure in the chest. You had camera shut off. You had cold spots. You had a loud breath. You had a woman talking.
Yeah,
Isabel.
I can count on one hand the amount of disembodied voices I've heard. Actually, I can count like 3 times, maybe 3, over hundreds of investigations, and this was the first time we heard a disembodied female voice coming from the same room we were in, and the only other female was the librarian who was there walking us around. She was behind us, and we look at her, and she's like, "That wasn't me." we all just kind of like made eye contact. It was really strange.
This is the Alva and Belding Library in Belding, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And then, Brandon, we had a Class A EVP that you could hear.
Well, that was audible, so it was something that they could hear in the room. Unfortunately, me and Wayne were downstairs at the time, and the rest of them were up on the main floor. And they were divided into 2 groups in different corners of the library. And they could hear like somebody whistling. And it went from like one part of the library to like the other part of the library. And you could pick it up on the recorders because you can even hear it like on the recorders in one corner and the recorder on the other. You can hear it loud at one and get quieter, and the other one from quieter to louder. So we could actually track the path, of like where the spirit was going in the building. And they could hear it audibly when they were there, but it was none of them.
Whether that was Mr. Belding, because the deal was he donated this beautiful library, but the city had to maintain the building in like beauty and form as a library for all time. So he created this unfinished business contract. So whether he's there, making sure that they're following what he mandated or not, whether he is the guy whistling, but the story there is it's a little girl that people have heard, this little girl's voice. And I got one of my best EVPs, his creepiest ones, said, "Mommy, I'm scared."
Oh, wow.
That I recorded with no equipment just as we were packing up. And so I kind of fell in line with the little girl stories there. So
yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, that was a great urban legend, right? Some of the other places you've been to, urban legends, did you go out to the museum, the old Allegan County Jail Museum? Have you been there?
No, I haven't been there yet. We've been to several museums, just that's not one we've ventured out to yet. I mean, we've done some stuff in Kalamazoo area, like Henderson Castle and the cemetery across the street from there.
Yeah, sometimes we should look into, because I want to get back into the end of there. So maybe we try to run it out together. And
definitely.
That's really cool.
You're at the mill with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a time.
Yeah.
Is that where they had that scrying mirror?
That was Greg and Dana's one that they made at the Hinsdale House. It wasn't a piece it's at that location. It was something they brought with their traveling museum.
Is that where they did the paintings for you?
I did not get one there.
Okay.
I think he was there before, like when some of my other old team members were there. I think they may have gotten paintings there, but he wasn't there when the times that I've went there.
I don't know if you've seen that. They guy does these paintings, and it's like
no,
it'll be like spirits and
really
that are attached to you or whatever.
Yeah, it's like makes me Brian Danhausen. He does like spirit paintings. So he doesn't ask you any questions. He does the painting, then he goes and he tells you what that painting means. And like one of the ones that I had was like he like nailed it like right on with an experience I had with somebody that I knew that passed on, that I had to help them cross over. And like he nailed that perfectly.
Yeah,
and that's something that I
cool.
don't share with people,
Yeah.
They're pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now I built you as the king of the haunted road.
Hey, it's Afterlife Road. I love a good roadside urban legend. Like those, that goes back to like Rosevere, places you're just driving, you can just pull over the side of the road, get out of the car, and have something happen. Like that's super cool.
Yeah, you were one of the first ones that we had on the show where it started talking about roads being haunted, and then when I started researching it after that, I'm like, there are several in Michigan.
I mean, if you're gonna get in a car accident, where are you gonna get in a car accident? The amount of people that die on roads.
Now, one of the things that kept coming up with the roads and other locations, cemeteries, is this lady in white.
Yeah. Yep. And then the hitchhiker ghost, and it's always around a bend too. You know, most roadside legends is like where the bend is, which is probably like where most cars go off the road.
Off the road.
That or a bridge. A
Yeah,
bridge is always
or
a
a
big
bridge,
one
yep.
too.
Or a bridge along a bend.
Yeah.
So, or stretch, like the amount of times a road is haunted, and we go to the stretch of the road that's haunted, and there's a cemetery right there. It's like, okay, is it the road that's haunted, or is the cemetery so haunted? You know,
It's
people
leaking
are just-
out into the road.
Yeah. So, like those are the three common things: the bridges, the bends, and the cemeteries.
Yeah.
I had Seven Gables Road. You heard the scream. That means certain death. I don't know if it's at a certain time or.
I'm still waiting.
If you're the last one over the fence or something.
We heard a scream at Seven Gables, and the clock is still ticking on when that's gonna happen. So I guess whenever I pass, that's how long it is. The cycle.
I
So
see.
hopefully it's not short.
It's one of those prophecies that's always true because if
Yes,
whatever
yeah.
happens, you're gonna die.
Yeah. So
Eventually.
it's gonna come true.
Yeah.
But how far away is it? We don't know.
Blood Road. Just the name is enough right there.
Yeah.
Blood Road
Yes.
is one that you went to.
Well, that was actually named after a real person. Like the dude's like one of the founding people of the town. His name was Blood. So I guess like if you have the last name Blood, yeah, it's really cool to name a road after you. So it's Blood Road.
Oh, I
But
didn't
of
know
course,
that.
of course, it's gonna be haunted then. So
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
These stories are compelling.
yeah,
When you get, because these people, they sound like this thing really happened. I think you could put them on a lie detector test and they would pass.
yeah,
Yeah, they believe what they saw. And apparently you've had maybe some extraterrestrial and maybe some Bigfoot references too, not just ghosts in your career.
yeah. Seven Gables Road is like it has everything. It has extraterrestrial reports, it has spirit reports, and one of the most famous Bigfoot sightings in mid-Michigan was in Dansville, right across the street from Seven Gables Road. There's in the book Weird Michigan. There's photographs of this Bigfoot in Dansville, the city where Seven Gables Road is. You know, it's one of the few Bigfoot reports in that book, and it was just right across the road. So you know, we were thinking Seven Gables Road goes into these big woods, just miles and miles of unexplored territory. So if there is a Bigfoot in town, there's no direct reports of it being in Seven Gables Road. But if there is a Bigfoot, where would it go hide? Probably those woods back there.
Right.
So we did go back there we didn't find a Bigfoot, but we also haven't really caught many ghosts there either. So who knows?
That's cool that you had an open mind about other things other than
Right.
ghosts. And that's what Brandon wanted to get into when he started Jose is Kent County Paranormal.
Yeah.
Is because I was just ghost hunting. You know, I grew up with ghost hunting. But maybe the biggest thing as far as urban legends might have been you did a capstone documentary on Bath Cemetery.
Yes. I mean, going full, that's the place where the spirit mapper was taking us.
To Bath?
Yeah.
Oh.
So
So the story behind Bath, if you want to fill in.
yeah, like that. And the museum in town just got a big grant, I guess, to expand their museum and make it bigger. So and recently just made it so it's open to the public too, the Bath Museum, which is great because that was a big focus of the documentary that I did, the capstone. But in the 20s, there's still holds today. It's the biggest loss of life disaster ever to take place at a school. I mean,
38 grade school kids,
Yep.
6 adults,
Yep.
58 people injured.
Yep. You
Yeah.
see all the shootings these days. Still, this was the biggest. A member of the school board put a bomb under the school and detonated it, and apparently the whole thing didn't go off. If the whole thing went off, experts say the entire town would have imploded,
Oh, yeah.
and the whole town would be history. But only a piece of the bomb went off, which was still enough for the whole school to explode.
Yeah, 500 to 600 pounds of dynamite
Yep.
did not explode.
And and then he detonated another bomb at his farm, killing his wife and his horses. So,
Tragic story.
Yeah,
Now,
it was
Well, then there was another one too because he was in his vehicle, and he called somebody up to him. I can't remember if it was the school board president or
Yeah, I
the
think it was the
principal.
president,
Yeah. And like he paged up, and then he blew that up, and that killed like another kid, I think, too, and injured the other guy. Killed himself, and then
Yeah, and then he killed
in the
himself.
explosion. Yeah, in that explosion because he was in the vehicle, and then I think the president got injured, but I don't believe he didn't die. If I remember correctly.
Now, in some of your films, you had the Ouija board and you guys are screaming and getting frightened and running, and I was right there with you. But at this location at Bath, you did it. You kind of toned it down, and you had me about crying with you. You were at Monument. Is it
Yeah, so that when the school exploded, the cupola of the school is the only thing that survived. So they had the cupola just there at the side of the old school, and I guess that's where the museum. The museum is just kind of like a small area in the new school they built across the street, and I guess the museum just got money to expand to that spot where the cupola is to make a better infrastructure around the cupola to preserve it to help it and make a bigger museum there. And like you said about tone, like we don't dictate the tone. We show up and the location dictates the tone. So we'll have crazy, intense, scary investigations, which, those aren't my favorite. Like I'd much prefer to go have, a tame, calm, normal investigation, as normal as it can get in the paranormal.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the complete opposite end of the spectrum where, intense fear, okay, that's this place, and intense sadness is the other place. Like the amount of times I was at Bath just by myself or with just one other person, filming the capstone doc during the day, like you can feel the sadness there.
Yeah.
So it's just a sad place.
I felt it in your tone, the sadness, the seriousness, the respect, and yeah, that was great. Now we have a friend, Kat Tetson, who has the EVP from Bath, where they ask, "Who was your favorite teacher?" And they're not using any equipment either, and you hear this little girl, like a little girl's voice, answer back, Mrs. So and so, and they looked it up, and sure enough, that was a teacher.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know if seeing is believing, or maybe hearing can believe.
Yeah, I mean,
can be believing.
We had a very similar story at Bath. One of the clearest voices we've ever gotten said, "My name is Herman."
Okay.
And then we looked over on the monument they have there, and to backtrack too, it said, "My name's Herman," and then Ryan said he saw something, so it's like, "Oh, are you what I saw?" And then it said on Spirit Box, "That was my brother." So we go over to the monument, and there's a pair of twins, Herman and Henry. So there is a Herman, and he has a brother, Henry. So we go over to pay our respects off camera at the cemetery they're buried at. I looked it up on Find a Grave.
Things line up so often.
Yeah,
The
and
synchronicity.
The only victims out of the entire bombing that had the wrong death date on their headstone.
All right. Oh, yeah. I remember saying that.
So what are the odds of that? That the name lines up. The fact that he had a brother lines up. And out of all the 30 some odd kids that died, there's the only two there.
Yeah, they need to correct that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. We need to get into the end of the show, and that's shout outs. We always do a shout out to our last guest, and that was Allie and Darren Dykehouse. I think you know them
Yeah,
well.
they're great. They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lakeshore Paranormal, and then her new thing is Sweet Pea 4-leaf clover.
Well, they love that Devil's Playground. This
He
place
is
they investigated
he's
is
the king
crazy.
of the cemeteries. Darren
Yeah.
is, right? And then I'll do a shout out to my wife. She's hasn't had a seizure now in over 6 months, so that's why I came back after a 3-month hiatus. Shout out to our tech guy Tyler and Kelly. She puts our show on TV on Comcast Channel 25 and Uverse. You can see us on Monday nights 11 p.m. and then Saturday nights 12:30 a.m. or it's Sunday morning. So shout out to those guys. And then our Kim Colleen, she couldn't make it. And then we have another Tanya. She's in Ohio.
Yeah.
She does Zooming with Brandon. And then upcoming, you got any upcoming stuff?
I was just at before this. There, I guess there's a cemetery like 15 minutes away that has a glowing headstone.
Byron Center.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, so I went out there, filmed a little bit there. So, yeah, I got a video on that coming out soon, I guess.
Okay, cool.
I've investigated there a few times.
Yeah, upcoming for you, Brandon?
I really don't have anything coming up, at least at the moment.
Yeah, we got a show that we hope is in the works. It's a retired meteorologist, Jack Bouchon. And he's the guy who, in March 8th, 1994, reported the UFOs. He was a meteorologist at the time. And then, of course, he got ridiculed because the government wouldn't stand by it. Now, they've come forward, and he's been vindicated after all these years. And
in that case, it was the police were getting a lot of reports, and one of the police officers saw it. So I think then they went to the weather, like, "Are you picking this up on radar?" And he was seeing it on the radar. So
did you see the film?
I seen the Unsolved Mysteries. It was a really good episode.
Yeah, he got Netflix Unsolved Mysteries. Mm-hmm. It's season 3, episode 2. You saw that?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet. And then he's supposed to be on the show. He's coming from Atlanta, Georgia, to be on the show. And then we're gonna have Bill Konkoleski come over because he heads up MUFON.
Mm-hmm.
So
and he's on there as well on that episode, talking about UFO cases.
Right.
In Michigan.
So he wanted to be on that show.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have him come and co-host. So we're looking forward to that. It's called Something in the Sky. That's what the YouTube or the Unsolved Mysteries Netflix is called, Something in the Sky. And then with me, my ongoing project has been the 988 new 3-digit suicide hotline. I've been promoting that. I called it last night to see if it was effective here in Michigan. I don't know if it's so much the state as your phone carrier, but it's supposed to be in effect nationwide as of July. So you have to don't take it for granted that it will get through. But if it does, and you're a vet, once you dial 988, you dial 1. Because we lose a vet every 65 minutes. We lose an American veteran. So, and then LBGT is also another big group that we lose a lot of people from, those young kids dealing with their sexuality. And so if you go 988 and then dial 3, they've got a special place for you to go for that. Final thought. The poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley says, at the end it says, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." You think, Brandon, you believe that? You are the one that's driving the ship here?
I'd say it's kind of a blend, because a lot of the stuff in your life is really out of your control. You have a certain say in it, so it's kind of more of a 50-50. Some of it's in your control, and a lot of stuff isn't in your control.
Okay.
So that's what I would say on that.
Now, okay, Ben Goldman, are you driving the ship?
Hey, I think Brennan had a good answer. Maybe more 60-40, but still definitely. It's not 100% either way, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys. I think some of this is mandated or is kind of laid out for you, kind of a general outline, and then you can work within that outline, but you have choices that you can make on your own. So it's not necessarily written in the stars, your destiny. You can control that. And I think you could do that with a lot of bad decisions maybe in your life. But yeah, I agree with you guys on that. It's not all predestined, I don't think. You're going to have some choices to make that are your own, definitely, every day. Inspirational thought. I always try to make that relate to the guest. Mm-hmm. And for you, I've used quotes from people like Einstein, when you used to have the big fro.
Yeah, you always pick geniuses.
Yeah, and who else? The guy who does all the cartoons, Walt Disney. I got a quote from Walt because I think you're along that genius line. Here's the quote, and then see if you can figure out where it may have come from. It doesn't matter if you do 10 stupid things, as long as you do one smart one. Any idea where that came from?
I don't know. That's relatable, though.
Yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of smart things. I don't know how many stupid ones you've done. But
10 for every one thing you think I did was smart.
This movie you did is real smart. I liked that. That was from Colonel Tom Parker.
Oh, okay.
That's what he told Elvis. So I guess I would be Colonel Tom Parker and you'd be Elvis. You know, the Colonel got like 50% of Elvis's.
I think I think he might have gotten more
It's a
than that.
reality, so
Maybe
Like,
we'll have to
like-
redefine this relationship we have then.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Elvis did not get a good deal. An agent should be like 10% or like less.
So
Like, he
when you
was
make it
getting
big,
hosed.
Ben Goldman, remember
Yeah, I'll remember this.
remember
whole
Brandon
analogy.
and I, will you?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, now that's a show. Another great show. Thanks a lot, Ben Goldman from Afterlife Road Productions.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You can find afterliferoadproductions.com. That's the website, afterliferoadproductions.com.
There you go.
Has all the stuff right there. So
Brandon Jose, they can find you.
Jose Paranormal History YouTube channel. You can also find me on Facebook as well under the same name. So
You might find me back in the studio maybe once or twice more. Peace out.
well, I thought it was funny because like the couple episodes you're like, this is my last show, and then like that next week like these are the next 2 shows I booked I'm gonna do. I was like 2 days ago you said it was your last show.
Well, if we got more people that want to come to the studio,
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah, Zooming's
But,
a little bit trickier. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do the Zoom, but Brandon's going to do some more Zoom shows. So look for Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters. We're out there. Take care.
This episode of Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters Paranormal Podcast, located at 901 Gazan Parkway, Southwest Wyoming, and available at 616-531-8300.
The opinions expressed in the preceding program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.